maybe this is typical of a food addict, but all of this talk has just made me hungry. Like, I overate at lunch, like, I'm just like, I'm uncomfortable, and when I'm uncomfortable, my first thought is food, you know, and I think that that's part of my disease, and that's been this way my whole life. Also, just, I feel like, what do you call that? Not a waiver. Yeah, maybe a waiver, but is that I've been like super emotional this week, and I feel like, okay, I'm gonna fall apart up here. So I'm just very nervous a little bit, but I also like love this, you know, I do. I love this. And I'm my favorite subject, so I love it. And so it's gonna be awkward for the first minute, and then I'm gonna get going, and you're all gonna love it. You know, like it's gonna be okay. The other thing I wanted to say is that what I was thinking about on the way here is that there's two things I know, and there's so much I don't know. And one thing I know is that recovery is possible. I know that. I believe that with everything inside of me. I also know that when it comes to eating disorders and my eating disorder and my food addiction, that it's never going to be a straight line, ever. And I really desperately wanted it to be, still want it to be. And sometimes I think that's the biggest work of this, is because, and I think it's because I got sober from drugs and alcohol at 34, and it's a very straight line, it's very black and white. Once I don't smoke crack, I don't drink, I'm sober. And those were things that I used to do. My life, up until recovery at 34, was terrible. It was awful, it was full of trauma, it was full of abuse. I have one of those stories where I should write a book, but I'm really lazy, and I'm a lazy creative, and I'm scared, and I probably need an art therapist if you know anybody, but I grew up in a really dysfunctional home. My mother was schizophrenic, she had narcolepsy, she was neglectful, she was abusive, I was starved in the crib, I just was starved from the beginning. I was told from a very early age, and she told me this later, that I just was afraid to feed you. Like, I just was afraid to feed you from being a baby. And she had a lot of trauma herself. My father left for someone else who was prettier and skinnier, and my whole life, there was always problems. There was always problems. Eating, the minute I could, it seemed like I could eat, I couldn't stop, I couldn't control it. She used to put locks on our pantry and our closet and try to control my eating with medicine, her own medicine. She tried to control my behavior with her own medicine. There's so many food crimes, there's so many food-related parts of my trauma that are abusive with food, so it's all very connected. I hated myself from as long as I can remember. I found drugs and alcohol sometime in grade school. I don't remember when. I was a runaway. I had a lot of behavior problems. That's another thing I will tell you. My mom took me to a doctor. I'm 59, so I don't know the math or the ages, but I was 3 years old, and my mom took me to a doctor who said she doesn't have a normal brain and she can't have sugar. Don't give her any sugar. We were super poor, like our lights were off, we lived on food stamps, we stole food from the grocery store, and my mother was like all we ate was sugar. Like, come on, we're not gonna be able to do that. We didn't, she was sleeping or depressed or crazy, you know what I mean? So I know I'm in a room full of clinicians, so I probably should use nicer words. My experience from my mother, okay? But now I see her as a really loving trauma, person. But at the time, this was my experience, and and that's kind of all I ate was ultra-processed food. Like, that's all we ate until I got sober at 34. Like, I never exercised, I hardly ever ate fruits. I ate macaroni and cheese and chocolate milk and candy and cookies, and that's what I ate. And even when I started to drink and use drugs, like once I started drinking, well, let me back up. I became a ward of the state. The state got involved in our situation, and I went to live in foster care and group homes. And then there was a lot of abuse and a lot of terrible things, and we don't need to talk about like outside of the home, but there was like nowhere safe. There was no school, there was no people, there was nobody coming out Kimmy at all. I felt very much on my own my whole life. And so when I'm in the special class in grade school and somebody says, do you want to go in the alley and try this? The answer is yes. Like, I don't know what's in the alley. I don't know who you are. I love the alley. I will go. I still love the alley. Like, do you want to try this? Yes, I want to try anything. So I can't feel, I was in a lot of adolescent treatment. I've been in therapy in and out my whole life. I cut myself a lot. I tried to kill myself a lot as a little kid. Like, there was just a lot. There was a lot. And so I used drugs and drank as soon as I could get my hands, and once I started, I couldn't seem to stop. So all those kids in the alley are like, let's go back and make fun of the math teacher. And I'm like, I live in the alley. Now this is what I do. I'm gonna look for more of this. Like, I gotta have more. And when it came to food, it was the same. Like, once I put something in my system, like, I always felt like I was allergic to it. Before I knew what food addiction was, like, I always knew that with sugar, for example, like, I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. And I don't know that I ever tried, but it seemed like there was drugs and alcohol. Like, even when I make jokes about this, but it's really not funny if you think, it depends on the crowd. But, you know, like, even in my earliest age, like, even when I was doing cocaine and really addicted to all that stuff, I was still binge eating. Like, everybody around me is doing cocaine and they're losing weight. That never helped me lose weight. Like, I probably did cocaine hoping I would lose weight. It never did. I would wake up from a hangover and I would binge my brains out. And then I would go back to doing the same thing. And I gotta fast forward. So it was always a problem. Food was always a problem. And then I got sober. I was 34 years old. I found AA. Somebody saved my life and took me to AA. And I loved it. I loved it from the very beginning. The first meeting I ever went to, they said the magic words, we're going to breakfast. Like, do you want to go? And I was like, yes, I do. And there was tons of food in AA, and like, food got me through those first years, the detoxing, the sickness, but also, like, I got sober at 34. I didn't get sober easy. I was being evicted. All my mirrors were covered because I hated myself. I didn't know what body dysmorphia was until I got much older. But like, I hated myself. Everything about me, I hated it. And my mirrors were covered. I was using SOS pads. I don't know if some of you might be too young. SOS pads to take a shower. Like, I had a ton of sexual abuse. And even though I had therapists that were telling me about this stuff, I don't think it really computed until I could get sober. None of this, like, I didn't think it was trauma because I just thought, it's my fault. Like, my mom, you know, did all these abusive things. She's dead now. I'm so sorry. This is what happens all the time. I talk really fast, like I'm just trying to get through it, you know, and then I often think I'm overshared. So much better at this.
No.
But I just, you know, like, I'll give you an example. Like, I used to steal as a little kid. I would steal food, I would steal money, I would steal whatever I can. Now, as an adult, working in the field, like, oh, that's trauma, that's desperation. Of course you stole. But like back then, like, I would get tied up, I'd get locked in a cage, my hands would get burnt, like I just thought, this is my fault. Like, all this is my fault. Of course I'm being treated bad, of course she's doing this, because I stole, or I ran away, or I rubbed up against him, another addiction when I was a kid. And like, I couldn't, it was like all of it, I couldn't stop, and I just wanted to die all the time. And so when I got, did I fast forward? Was I at sobriety yet? Okay, I got sober at 34, and this is where I learned a lot of stuff. But first, I had to put down the drugs and alcohol so that I could work on the root causes, right? Like, and I didn't know I was an alcoholic. I didn't know what that was. Even though I was 34, I never went to high school. I got a GED, like, living in a psychiatric ward, and I just was out there surviving, you know what I mean? So of course I was eating and using. What are you doing? And I just couldn't seem to stop. And then when I got sober, the first year, the detox, all that, I loved it. I loved the people. I had friends. Like, I was being evicted, and they said, you could live with us as long as you don't drink and smoke. And I moved, and I had nothing. And AA kind of gave me everything. They gave me friends. They gave me a purpose. I remember picking up garbage and a thing like this, and the lady said, you're going to help a ton of people. And I'm like, me? Like, me? I had nothing to offer. AA gave me everything that I have, so I loved it. And I didn't fight it. I was all in from the beginning, you know? And I think food got me through that. I wouldn't have thought that at the beginning, but after I had about a year sober, I went to the doctor, which I hadn't in a while, ever, really, and because I kept having these blinding headaches, and it would make me lose my eyesight, and they said I had something like a fluid tumor pressing on my optic nerve. And I thought, I'm gonna get chemotherapy, I'm gonna get skinny. Like, I know this is so sick, but I was like morbidly obese at the time, and I hated myself, you know? And he said, no, you can't have sugar. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, all my life, doctors have been just talking to me about my weight, you know? Like, you can't have sugar, you can't have sugar. But I couldn't even comprehend the world without sugar, you know, because it was all I ate. But this scared me, and I binged that day at the doctor's office, and then I gave up sugar cold turkey, and that was 22 years ago. So I haven't had a real candy bar or those cookies be on there. Like, I would say no to that. But that didn't stop. That didn't fix my problem, really. You know, like, well, I thought it did because I lost a bunch of weight, and then I became this crazy run. I got into exercise, I worked at the Y, I lost 100 pounds, they put me on commercials, and they were interviewing me, and I thought, I'm good now, I'm okay. I had this hot little body, and I was like I did like 4 marathons, you know, I became a spin instructor, and I'm good. And I remember my AA sponsor saying, you ain't good. Like, one day you're just gonna be a normal person, but if you don't treat what's underneath, something's not right. You're not okay, and you need to go to OA, Overeaters Anonymous. And I was so into AA, but who wants to go to something called Overeaters Anonymous? Shoot me, right? Like, I don't want to go there. And I would go there. There'd be 4 women. They were in a larger body. Now we say larger body. Back then we didn't call it that, but larger body, sitting at a table, all looking depressed. I'm like, I want what you have. I have what you have. Like, I want what AA had. Like, I want it to be like AA, and it's just not in Chicago anyway. OA is nothing like AA in Chicago. So I just was like, no, I'm just going to quit sugar. I'm going to exercise all the time. I didn't know what exercise bulimia was. I thought I'm winning at life, you know? Like, I didn't even think I had an eating disorder. I didn't think what I was doing with food I thought skinny gymnasts are eating disorder. What I'm doing with food is shameful, is a moral condition, is a failing. It's like when you talked about the car, I have so many fears that I'm going to die because of eating in a car, or like doing all that. You know, that's how I'll go or something. So I lost all this weight, and I kept it off for like 7 to 9 years, let's say. 2010, 10. That was the Chicago Marathon that I couldn't run because I got hurt. I hurt my back, and I couldn't run. I could barely walk. And I had to give it up. My hair was falling out, all these problems, and I started first I got the hot body, and then I met Mr. Wrong. Because if I'm not eating, then it's something under it. And I don't know, I'm not a doctor or anything, but I know under eating disorders, there's a lot of sexual abuse, at least for me. That was my experience. And so the first time somebody finally noticed me at 36, 37 years old in my new hot gym body, you know, I just could not stop seeing Mr. Wrong. And when Mr. Wrong finally ended and I got over that addiction, I was back to binging and purging. I was eating things that weren't sugar, but I'm going to overdose on them anyway. And it came back full force. And I went into the hospital in 10 and stayed till the end of October of that year. And because I was throwing up like 14 times a day. And my AA sponsor said, we got to go get you help for this eating disorder. I'm not a compulsive overeater. God bless her that she said that to me. I can't help you with this. You need to be around other people who get this. And so we went to Hoffman Estates, and that arrested the behavior. And I stopped purging for a long time. I did. I feel like I'm going to fall down. Exercising obsessively, and I didn't eat sugar, but I gained like 100 pounds in a year back. And now the shame is 100 times worse because all these people saw me on the interviews, and now I got to go back and all my friends, and what happened, you know, and just the shame is terrible. And so I went to OA. For me, OA, I believe, can help me, but it doesn't feel as good as AA. I don't know how to talk about this. Let's see. When you say food sobriety, for me, like, I still haven't had sugar, but I'm addicted to other things. I'm addicted to the process. Like Like somebody else can eat at shift. And I know they have that saying like, oh, once you have one, you can't stop eating. They were right, you know, like there are certain foods that trigger some kind of response that's not only, oh, wow, I ate too much, I feel bad about myself, that is psychotic. That I'm gonna knock you down to get to it. Do you know what I mean? And not a normal reaction. And because of my time in AA, I could see how similar, and if you think about it, alcohol is sugar and grains or yeast and whatever, and for other people, all foods fit. For me, it doesn't. It's just like, I eat these foods and I'm nuts, you know? And I've had food plans and I've had dietitians and I've had sponsors, and it looks a different way. It looks a different way today than it did a month ago. It is not a straight line, and I want it to be. I want to be like, I gave up sugar, I lost all this weight, now I'm happy and fine, but I'm not. It's like, I'm not okay when I put certain foods. It changes my mind, it changes my behavior, it changes my body. The biggest thing that is helpful to me, also, it's been really hard for me to listen to the medicine because I am a very black and white thinker. And for me, the medicine's been hard because it's been recommended to me. A lot of my friends, a lot of OA people started taking the medicine. They look different. Sometimes they look weird. You know, you guys are beautiful. But sometimes, like, people I've known, like, the medicine scares me. It's not even that it scares me. It's like, I know in my innermost self, it's not for me, and it probably works for other people. But like, I have a tendency to think black and white and think that that's not, we shouldn't be doing, none of us should be doing. So it's very eye-opening to hear this today, and not always comfortable, to be honest. I haven't been comfortable. And I work in an eating disorder clinic where we talk about this stuff all the time. And it's not a comfortable place to work, no offense. You know what I mean? Like, for me, anyway, for me, because I can compare myself, I'm comparing myself to you, I'm comparing myself to them, but somehow showing up and being of service seems to help me, you know? What has helped me is community and connection. So the more people that I got in my corner that are also in eating disorder recovery, whether it's OA, EDA, whatever, those communities, they help me. Praying helps me. Like, believing that this God who kept me sober and saved my life, it's a miracle that I'm alive, will help me with this, helps me, you know? But there are certain days where it's like, there's good days and there's bad days, and I've got to get to the part where I'm still valuable no matter what. Like, at this size, at my littler size, at a bigger size, like, that my value can't come from how I look, and that's a work in progress. There are some days where I love myself like crazy, and I never thought that possible. Then there's other days today, like I'm like having a yucky day, you know, and I'm feeling like it's not, or I still feel like when you were talking about we don't take GLP-1s for weight loss, that never occurred. What? Of course they do. Like it boggles my mind. So it's just such a learning process. That's the only thing that I know that has helped, and sticking to a food plan when I can do it. Like when I can be consistent with a food plan that's been designed by someone else, not me, by a dietitian who knows what's going on with me, an eating disorder dietitian that knows what's going on with me, who's not afraid to say, hey, maybe you could choose a different kind of carb than biscuits, you know, or something. I love this, you know what I mean. But does that help?
That's amazing.
Is that it? No?
You're totally amazing.